Last Tuesday, my world shattered with a single phone call. My husband Mark was gone just like that. A heart attack at 40 while I was packing our daughter Ava's lunch for school. I called my parents sobbing so hard I could barely breathe, but my mother just sighed and said, "We're celebrating Jessica's birthday right now, can this wait until tomorrow?" I never imagined that in the darkest moment of my life, my family would abandon me. But what they did next was even worse. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 37 years old, and now I'm a widow left alone with my 8-year-old daughter holding each other as our world fell apart. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who should have protected you, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to join others who understand this pain. When I called my mother sobbing that my husband had just died, she said, "Honey, today is Jessica's 40th birthday. Can this wait until tomorrow?" I sat on the kitchen floor, the phone still pressed against my ear, staring at the crumbs from the breakfast I had made for Mark that morning. My body was shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone, and I couldn't understand how the world could keep spinning when Mark's heart had stopped. Mark was only 40. He had kissed me that morning before leaving for the office downtown, promising he would be back early to take Ava to her soccer practice. His kiss had tasted like coffee and maple syrup, and his cologne still clung to the air in our kitchen. That morning felt like a different lifetime. I called my father next, hoping he would understand, but Richard's voice was muffled by the background noise of laughter and music. "Emily, your mom just told me. This is tough. But you know everyone's here for Jessica's party. We'll talk tomorrow, okay?" "Tomorrow," I whispered, but he had already hung up. I pressed my forehead to the cabinet, tears soaking my hair. I needed them. I needed someone to tell me what to do, to remind me to breathe, to tell me that somehow we would survive this. But they chose cake and balloons over holding my hand while I fell apart. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve and stood up. Ava would be getting out of school soon, and she would be waiting for me in the pickup line. She would be looking for Mark's truck, not knowing he would never drive it again. I didn't want to tell her in the car, but I couldn't let her walk into a house filled with silence. When she climbed into the backseat, her backpack thudded against the floor, and she smiled, her brown eyes bright like Mark's. "Mom, did Daddy get the snacks for practice?" I pulled over to the side of the road, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I turned to face her, swallowing the scream in my throat. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something about Daddy." Her smile faded, confusion twisting her small face. "Is he okay?" "No, baby," I said, my voice cracking. "Daddy got very sick at work today, and his heart stopped working." She blinked, her lips trembling. "But the doctors can fix it, right?" I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "No, baby. The doctors couldn't fix it this time." Ava let out a sound that ripped through me, a high broken wail that didn't sound human. She reached for me, her small hands gripping my jacket, pulling me closer as she sobbed. "I want Daddy. Please, I want Daddy." I pulled her into my arms, rocking her as cars sped by, as the world kept moving, as people laughed and lived and went on with their days while ours ended. I don't know how long we sat there parked under the gray Denver sky, but when Ava's sobs turned into hiccups, I kissed the top of her head and drove us home. That night, she crawled into my bed, clutching Mark's flannel shirt, pressing it to her face. She fell asleep with her tiny body curled against mine, her breathing uneven. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside and the quiet hum of the refrigerator, wishing Mark would walk in and tell me it was all a mistake. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the dark room. It was a message from my mother. "We'll come by tomorrow when things settle down. Try to get some rest." I turned off my phone and stared at the dark ceiling, listening to Ava's soft breathing beside me. Tomorrow. They would come tomorrow, when the party was over and the cake was gone. I slipped out of bed carefully, letting Ava keep Mark's flannel shirt pressed to her chest. I stepped into the hallway, the wooden floor cold under my feet, and walked to the kitchen. The sink was still full of breakfast dishes. Mark's coffee mug, a chip on the handle, still had a ring of coffee at the bottom. His lunch plate was still in the fridge, untouched. I opened the fridge and stared at it, the cold air brushing my skin, reminding me how alive I still was while Mark was not. I grabbed the plate and set it on the counter, then slid down to the floor, pressing my knees to my chest. I had to breathe. I had to figure out what to do next. A knock on the door startled me. It was nearly midnight. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and walked to the door, peeking through the peephole. It was our neighbor Mrs. Evans, holding a small casserole dish, her eyes red-rimmed. "Emily," I heard. "I'm so sorry, honey." I opened the door and she pulled me into a hug, the warmth of her arms reminding me that I wasn't completely alone. She stepped inside and set the dish on the counter. "You don't have to eat it now. Just heat it when you can." "Thank you," I whispered. She glanced toward the hallway where Ava was sleeping. "If you need me to take Ava tomorrow, just let me know." I nodded, but I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I wasn't sure I could let Ava out of my sight. After she left, I walked back to the bedroom, stopping by Mark's closet. His jackets hung neatly, his work shoes lined up ready for a day that would never come. I pressed my hand against his favorite navy jacket, the one he wore on Sunday mornings to get coffee, and I could almost hear his laugh echo in the small space. When I crawled back into bed, Ava shifted her small hand, reaching for mine in the dark. I held it tightly, the only anchor I had left in a world that felt like it was drifting away. In the early hours, I couldn't sleep. I walked quietly to the living room and pulled out the box of documents Mark kept under the coffee table. Bills, mortgage papers, and a thin blue folder labeled life insurance. My hands shook as I opened it, seeing his handwriting in the corner, the way he wrote his letters carefully. I remembered the day Richard, my father, had come over asking Mark for a loan to invest in a small business that was meant to help Jessica pay off her credit card debt. Mark had handed him a check without a word, squeezing my hand under the table to keep me calm. He trusted them. I did too once. I closed the folder and held it against my chest, trying to find the strength I would need to face them tomorrow. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was past 2 in the morning, but the screen lit up with a message from my mother. "We'll come by tomorrow when things settle down. Try to get some rest." My fingers hovered over the screen, wanting to type back every word that was burning in my chest. "How dare you? How could you leave me alone when I needed you?" Instead, I turned off the phone and walked to the window, looking out over the quiet Denver street, the glow of the streetlights spilling across the empty road. Ava needed me. Mark had trusted me to protect her. And I would. Even if it meant standing alone. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. I thought they would come to hold me and Ava, but I was wrong. They arrived just after lunch, the winter sun glaring against the glass door as Richard knocked once before letting himself in. Linda followed, clutching a grocery bag, her lips pressed into a line that looked like forced sympathy. Jessica trailed behind them, her phone in hand, thumbs tapping. I was in the kitchen, trying to force down a cup of coffee that had gone cold in my hands. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Linda leaned in for a quick hug, her perfume too strong, making me step back. "We're so sorry, honey," she said softly, but her eyes darted around, scanning the house like she was taking inventory. Jessica didn't look up from her phone. She muttered sorry before sliding onto the bar stool, scrolling, ignoring the room. Richard cleared his throat. "Can we sit down, Emily?" We moved to the living room, Ava's drawings still scattered on the coffee table. Mark's slippers were by the couch, untouched. Linda sat down, smoothing her jeans, while Richard remained standing, shifting his weight like he was getting ready for a business pitch. "Emily, your mother and we know this is a difficult time. We're all hurting," he began, his voice heavy with practiced concern. I nodded, clutching my mug, waiting for comfort that never came. He continued. "But we need to talk about Mark's policies, about what he would have wanted for the family." My stomach dropped and I glanced at Jessica, who finally looked up, her eyes flat. "Dad," I whispered now. Richard sighed. "Mark promised he would help Jessica clear her credit card debts. It's only fair we talk about this now before everything gets tied up." Jessica's lips twitched, almost a smirk. "You know I've been drowning, Emily." Mark understood that. I set the mug down before it slipped from my shaking hands. "You think Mark would want me to give you his life insurance money?" I asked, my voice trembling. Richard raised a hand. "We're not asking for everything, honey. We think it's reasonable that 50% goes to us to help with family obligations and 15% to Jessica to clear her debts. It's only fair." "Fair." My voice cracked. Ava was upstairs hugging Mark's pillow while they sat here calculating numbers. Linda reached over patting my knee. Emily, we raised you. We supported you through college. We helped with your first car. This is about family taking care of family. I stood the room tilting slightly as anger pushed through the fog of grief. Mark died 3 days ago, I said, my voice low. And you're here for his money. Jessica rolled her eyes. You think you're the only one hurting. I can't pay rent next month, Emily. Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice. Think about what Mark would have wanted. Think about what's fair for everyone. I looked at my father, the man who had once carried me on his shoulders at the 4th of July parade, now demanding a cut of my husband's death. If you were me, what would you have done? Richard didn't answer. Jessica let out a sigh, checking her phone again. The silence was loud, pressing against my ears. Have you ever had your grief turned into a negotiation? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. I wanted to scream, but instead I forced myself to breathe. I walked to the kitchen, needing space, gripping the counter to steady myself. I heard their voices in the living room, low, annoyed whispers that made my skin crawl. I poured a glass of water, but my hand shook so hard the water splashed onto the floor. I let it drip, focusing on the cold tile under my bare feet. Jessica appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. You know, Emily, it's not just about you and Ava. We're family, and you can't just hoard everything for yourself. I turned to her, the glass still in my hand. Mark died, Jess. He's gone. And you're standing in my kitchen calling me selfish. She rolled her eyes, pushing her dark hair over her shoulder. You always act like you're better than me. Mark was going to help, and now you have all that money. It's not fair. Fair, I repeated the word, tasting bitter. She glanced around the kitchen, her gaze pausing on Mark's coffee mug still by the sink. You think that money will bring him back? I set the glass down before I dropped it. No, I said quietly. But it's not yours. She scoffed and walked back to the living room. I followed, my heart pounding so loud it hurt. Richard and Linda were standing, their coats already back on, as if they couldn't wait to leave. We'll let you think about it, Richard said, his tone cold. But don't take too long. It's what Mark would have wanted. They left without another word, Jessica slamming the door behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there, the quiet swallowing the house, the echo of their demands sticking to the walls. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed while Ava slept, curled under Mark's flannel. I opened my laptop, staring at the screen, searching for answers. I found Mark's lawyer, Thomas Green, and sent him an email asking if they had any right to what they were demanding. Within an hour, my phone rang. Emily, Thomas said, his voice calm, measured. I am so sorry for your loss. And no, they have no legal right to a single cent of Mark's life insurance. It's yours and Ava's. You don't have to give them anything. I closed my eyes, a breath I didn't know I was holding leaving my chest. Thank you, I whispered. Emily, protect yourself and your daughter. If they keep pushing, let me know. I ended the call and set my phone down. I thought it would bring relief, but it didn't. It only made the betrayal sharper, clearer. I logged into Facebook to clear my mind, but the first post I saw made my blood run cold. Jessica had posted a photo of Mark and Ava from last Christmas smiling under the tree, and her caption read, "My sister got a huge payout while our family struggles, but I guess grief is easier when you're rich." I stared at the screen, unable to breathe, as notifications of likes and comments rolled in. Neighbors, old friends, people from church, all seeing her words. All forming opinions. A message pinged, and I clicked on it, hoping for support. It was from Jessica. If you don't share, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Have you ever had your grief turned against you? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Rumors travel faster than any truth. It started with a sideways glance from my neighbor Mrs. Klein as she pulled weeds from her yard. She waved, but her eyes lingered on me too long, filled with something sharp. At the grocery store, the cashier paused while scanning my milk, looking at me like she was seeing something new. I heard she's sitting on a gold mine now, she whispered to the bagger, thinking I couldn't hear. I carried the bags out, hands shaking, trying to ignore the burn of tears in my eyes. When I picked up Ava from school, she climbed into the back seat, slamming the door harder than usual. She wouldn't look at me, staring out the window, her arms crossed. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked. "Nothing," she muttered. I pulled over before leaving the school parking lot, turning around to face her. "Ava, please talk to me." She lifted her eyes, tears pooling. "Mason said you're rich now, that we don't need to talk to him because we're better than everyone." I felt the air leave my lungs. "That's not true," I said softly. "Is it true you have a lot of money now?" she asked, her voice small. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to find the right words. "Daddy made sure we would be okay, but that doesn't change who we are," I said. She looked away, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. At work, it was no different. People who had barely said more than hello now hovered around my desk. Claire, my coworker, brought me coffee, smiling too brightly. "How are you holding up, Em?" she asked. "I'm okay," I lied, taking the coffee. She sat on the edge of my desk, lowering her voice. "People are talking, you know. About Mark's policy. About how you're set." I looked at her, heat rising in my chest. "Claire, who told you that?" She shifted, looking uncomfortable. "I think Jessica mentioned it on Facebook and, well, people see things." I clenched my jaw, nodding, and she patted my shoulder before walking away, leaving me alone with the buzzing in my ears. That night the phone rang just after 9. I almost didn't answer, but I was too tired to ignore it. A male voice, low and rough, filled my ear. "Good people don't hide money when their family needs help, Emily." I froze, my hand gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Who is this?" I whispered. The line clicked dead, leaving nothing but my reflection in the dark window. "What would you have done if you were me?" I stood there holding the silent phone, feeling like the walls were closing in. I locked every door that night, checking them twice, my hands trembling. Ava was already asleep, her small frame curled under Mark's old Denver Broncos blanket, unaware of the whispers that were circling around us. The next morning Richard showed up at my door without calling. I saw him through the window, standing on the porch in his heavy coat, shifting from foot to foot. I opened the door just enough to see him, the cold air rushing in. "Dad, what are you doing here?" His eyes darted behind me, scanning the living room before landing back on me. "Emily, we need to talk." "Let me in." I didn't move. "We can talk here." He sighed, his breath a cloud in the cold. "Your mother and I have been thinking. We need to sit down as a family and sort this out. It's not right for you to keep everything when Jessica is struggling, and we're getting older, you know." I gripped the door tighter, the wood digging into my palm. "I'm not talking about this now." Richard's face tightened, and he lowered his voice. "Don't be selfish, Emily. Mark would want you to help family." I felt something inside me snap. "Don't you dare use Mark's name like that," I hissed. He opened his mouth, but I shut the door before he could say another word, locking it, pressing my forehead against the cool wood. I heard his footsteps on the porch, then the sound of his car starting, fading down the street. That afternoon, I found Ava sitting on the couch, clutching a picture of Mark, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They said you're rich now, and that you don't care about anyone," she whispered. "Who said that, baby?" She shook her head, pressing her face into the picture. I sat beside her, pulling her into my arms, feeling her small body shake with quiet sobs. "It's not true, Ava," I said softly. "We care, we always care." She didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either. That night, after I tucked her in, I went into the closet, pulling down the box Mark kept on the top shelf. His handwriting was on a small white envelope, my name written in blue ink. My hands shook as I opened it, pulling out a single sheet of paper. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. Emily, you have to protect Ava. Don't let anyone take her future from her, no matter what they say." Tears blurred the words as I pressed the letter to my chest, sinking to the floor of the closet, surrounded by the smell of Mark's clothes. Have you ever felt alone when you needed family the most? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. They said it was a family meeting, but I knew it was a silent trial. Ava held my hand in the car, her small fingers cold, her eyes watching the houses pass by as we drove to my parents' home in Littleton. "Mom, do I have to go in?" she whispered. I squeezed her hand, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "It will be quick, honey. We'll be okay." Richard opened the door before I could knock, stepping aside with a stiff nod. The house smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner, the air heavy. In the living room, Linda sat on the couch, Her lips pressed tight while Jessica wiped at tears that never fell. Aunts and uncles were there too, all of them quiet waiting. I saw the folding table in the center of the room, papers neatly stacked, a pen placed carefully on top. My stomach twisted. "Emily, have a seat," Richard said, his voice too smooth. I stayed standing, pulling Ava close, her hand gripping mine tighter. "We're here because we need to sort out family matters," he began, clearing his throat. Jessica sniffled, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her makeup perfect. I lost my job, Emily. My landlord is threatening to evict me," she said, her voice trembling. I kept my eyes on her, saying nothing. Richard picked up a paper, tapping it against the table. "Your mother and I have been discussing what would be fair. Mark would want the family to be taken care of, Emily. We think it's reasonable that 50% of the payout goes to us and 15% to Jessica to help her get back on her feet." I felt the room tilt, the words echoing like a bad joke. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice low. Linda looked up, her eyes sharp. "Emily, we raised you. We gave you everything you needed. It's time you remember that family comes first." I took a step back, feeling Ava's small frame press against my leg. "Mark helped this family," I said, my voice shaking. "He paid your bills when Dad lost work. He gave Jessica money to clear her debts before, and you never paid it back." Richard's face darkened. "That was a gift, Emily, and don't you dare throw that in our faces now." Jessica sniffed louder, looking around for sympathy. "I'm drowning, Emily. You're living in that house, driving that car, sitting on all that money while I'm begging for help." I felt my jaw clench, my hands shaking as I held Ava's hand tighter. "You think this is what Mark would have wanted? For you to guilt his widow and daughter for money?" Richard slammed his hand on the table, making Ava jump. "We fed you, we clothed you. We gave you everything, and now you think you're too good to help your own family." I stood there, my heart pounding in my ears, as Ava's eyes filled with tears. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for me to break. Ava's fingers dug into my palm, grounding me as I tried to catch my breath. I looked around the room at people who claimed to love me. People who had chosen a birthday party over holding me the day Mark died. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the heavy air. "Mark died 3 weeks ago. And you are sitting here counting what you think you deserve from his death." Jessica let out a sharp sob, burying her face in her hands. "It's not like that, Emily," she cried, her voice shaking. "I have nothing left. My car is gone. I can't keep the lights on, and you get to keep everything." Linda stood, crossing her arms over her chest. "Your father is right. We did everything for you. Now it's your turn." I swallowed the anger that burned in my throat. "I didn't ask you to pay for my college. I worked 2 jobs to cover the difference when you fell short. Mark paid your mortgage when you were drowning. Dad, he didn't ask for it back." Richard's face turned red. "We are your family. This is not a request. You will give us what is fair." Ava flinched at his tone, pressing closer to my side. I crouched down, meeting her frightened eyes. "It's okay, honey," I whispered. "I've got you." She nodded, her bottom lip trembling as she reached into her small backpack. "Mom, can I give this to Grandpa?" I frowned, confused, but she held out a folded piece of paper. I stood, taking the paper from her, and looked at Richard. "Ava has something for you." His eyebrows raised, but he took it from my hand, opening it slowly. The room fell silent as his eyes moved across the page. It was a child's drawing, but Ava had written in careful, blocky letters, "Invoice for love and support." Underneath, she had listed hugs when Daddy died -$0, helping Mommy when she was sad -$0, being there for me -$0, total $0. At the bottom, she had drawn a heart cracked down the middle. Jessica's breath caught a small gasp in the quiet room. Linda's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, looking away from me. Richard's hands shook as he held the paper, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. Ava stepped forward, her small voice strong. "That's what you gave us." "Nothing." The silence in the room was louder than any scream I had ever heard. Have you ever had to teach your family what love really means? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. A child's handwritten paper revealed the truth adults spent years hiding. Richard's hands trembled as he held Ava's invoice, the words shaking him harder than any argument I could have made. Hugs when Daddy died -$0. Helping Mommy when she was sad -$0. Being there for me -$0. Total $0. Jessica looked away, her fingers twisting the tissue in her lap until it tore. Linda's shoulders started to shake, tears streaming down her cheeks, but she wiped them fast, forcing herself to stay composed. Richard's face turned red, his jaw tightening as his eyes scanned the paper again like he couldn't believe a child had written it. I stood there, my hand on Ava's shoulder, feeling her small body lean into me for strength she didn't realize she already had. "This is what you gave us," I said quietly, meeting Richard's eyes. "Nothing." Linda let out a soft sob, covering her mouth with her hand. "Emily," she whispered, "it's not that simple." I shook my head, feeling the anger and grief swirl into something clear inside me. "It is that simple, Mom. You chose a birthday party over your daughter when her husband died. You chose to demand money before asking if your granddaughter was okay. That's simple." Jessica sniffled loudly, her eyes red. "You think you're better than us, Emily," she snapped. "You always have. You think you're so righteous because Mark left you money and you—" I cut her off, my voice steady. "I think Mark would be ashamed to see this. I think he would be ashamed to see how fast you turned on us when there was money involved." The room fell silent, the tension pressing down on all of us. Richard's hand clenched around the paper, crumpling Ava's careful handwriting. "We fed you. We clothed you. We put a roof over your head. You owe us, Emily," he hissed. I felt Ava flinch, but I didn't move. "No," I said, my voice calm. "I don't owe you anything. And let me be clear. If you keep pushing this, I will get my lawyer involved." Linda's eyes widened, her lips parting like she wanted to protest, but she didn't speak. Jessica's head dropped, her shoulders shaking, but I couldn't tell if she was crying or angry. I looked down at Ava, who was clutching the hem of my sweater, her big brown eyes looking up at me with quiet trust. "Boundaries don't ruin relationships," I said, my voice soft but firm. "The truth does." Richard's eyes flashed, his lips pulling back in a sneer. "You'll regret this, Emily. What would you have done if you were me?" Richard's eyes were cold as he crushed the paper in his fist. "You'll regret this, Emily," he repeated, his voice low and sharp. Ava flinched again, pressing closer to me, and I placed my hand on her back, steady and calm. "No, Dad," I said, holding his gaze. "The only regret I have is thinking you would be here for us." Linda let out a small cry, covering her mouth with her hand, her eyes darting between me and Richard like she was silently begging him to stop. Jessica stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor, her face red. "You're ruining this family, Emily. Do you even care about anyone but yourself?" I looked at her, remembering all the times I had covered for her, paid her rent when she disappeared for weeks, helped her clean up messes she made without thinking twice. "Do you even hear yourself, Jessica?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Do you think Mark would have wanted this? For you to attack Ava and me while we're still grieving him?" She wiped her eyes, but she couldn't look at me. Richard stepped forward, pointing a finger at me, his hand still clutching the crumpled paper. "We built your life, Emily. You wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for us. You owe us, and we will get what we deserve." I felt something crack inside me, but it wasn't fear. It was clarity. "No," I said firmly. "I don't owe you anything. I owe Mark and Ava everything, and I will protect what he left for her no matter what you do." Richard's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. "You think you're better than us. You think you can cut us off. If you leave now, you will never see another cent from me," I said, my voice even. "And if you try to take anything from Ava, I will take this to court and I will win." Jessica let out a frustrated sob, throwing her hands in the air. "This is insane," she shouted. "You're insane." I turned to Ava, kneeling in front of her, brushing a tear off her cheek. "Let's go home, baby." She nodded, clutching her small backpack, her eyes brave, even though they were wet. I stood up, turning to the room one last time. "This conversation is over. Don't contact me again unless it's to apologize, and don't you dare come near my daughter with this nonsense again." I turned and walked out, Ava's hand in mine, her head held high as we stepped into the cold Denver air. Behind us, I heard Richard's voice, dark and angry. "You'll regret this, Emily. You will pay for this." I didn't look back as I opened the car door, helping Ava climb in, buckling her seatbelt with hands that were finally steady. As I started the car, I glanced at Ava, who was clutching her drawing to her chest. "Did I do the right thing, Mom?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath, nodding. "You did the bravest thing, Ava." As we drove away, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket, a new message lighting up the screen from an unknown number. Have you ever had to walk away from your own family to protect your child? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. When family turns into your enemy, court becomes the only place for justice. I was pouring cereal for Ava when the envelope slid under my door. A heavy cream-colored envelope with my name typed across it in bold letters. My hands froze, the milk spilling over the edge of the bowl. Ava watched me, her small face tight with worry. "Mom, are you okay?" I forced a smile, wiping up the milk with a dish towel. "I'm okay, baby. Go get your shoes on for school." As soon as she left the kitchen, I picked up the envelope, tearing it open with shaking hands. Inside was a letter from my parents' lawyer claiming they were seeking a fair division of assets after Mark's passing, stating that as family they had a right to a portion of the life insurance and any shared marital assets. I sat down at the kitchen table, the letter in my hand, my eyes burning. They really did it. The phone felt heavy as I called Thomas Green, Mark's lawyer, who had been helping me manage the paperwork since Mark's death. "Emily," he answered calmly, as if he could hear the fear in my silence. I told him about the letter, reading the words out loud, each one tasting bitter. Thomas let out a sigh. "Emily, this is nothing more than an intimidation tactic. They have no legal standing to claim Mark's life insurance or your shared assets. Colorado law is very clear on this." I swallowed hard, pressing my hand to my forehead. "But what if they keep pushing? What if this gets ugly?" Thomas's voice was steady. "Then we will respond appropriately. But you need to remember Mark did everything to protect you and Ava. Don't let them take that away." I closed my eyes, picturing Mark's smile, the way he used to say, "We'll always protect Ava no matter what." I hung up, but the weight in my chest didn't ease. Later that afternoon at work, Claire approached my desk, her eyes darting around before she leaned in. "Emily, can we talk?" I nodded, pushing away the spreadsheet I was trying to focus on. She lowered her voice. "Jessica messaged me on Facebook last night. She asked me to talk to some of the other girls here about you. To tell them you've been hoarding Mark's money and refusing to help your family." I felt my face go cold, my heart dropping into my stomach. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice shaking. Claire's eyes softened. "I told her I wouldn't be part of that. But Emily, I think she's trying to ruin your reputation here." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you for telling me, Claire." She gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze before walking away, leaving me staring at my screen, the numbers blurring together. Have you ever had to fight for your peace against the people who should protect it? When I picked up Ava from school that day, she was quiet in the back seat. She stared out the window, clutching her water bottle, her small shoulders tight. I glanced at her in the mirror. "How was your day, honey?" She didn't answer at first, her lip quivering before she finally spoke. "Grandma called the school today. She wanted to talk to me." I gripped the steering wheel, the color draining from my face. "What did she say?" Ava's voice was barely a whisper. "She said she missed me. She asked if you were taking care of me." I told her I didn't want to talk to her. I pulled the car over, turning around to face her, trying to keep my voice calm. "You did the right thing, Ava. You don't have to talk to anyone you don't feel safe with, even if it's family." Her eyes filled with tears. "Are they mad at me now?" "No, baby. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." That night, after Ava fell asleep, clutching her teddy bear, I sat on the floor of my room, my back against the bed, staring at the stack of paperwork from Thomas. The legal words blurred together, the weight of it pressing on my chest. I remembered being 10 years old, standing in the kitchen while my parents argued about money. Richard's voice booming through the walls, Linda's quiet sobs. I remembered promising myself that when I grew up, I would never let money poison my family. Now here I was, fighting to keep the roof over my daughter's head from the people who should have been protecting her. My phone buzzed, lighting up with Thomas's name. I answered, my voice barely steady. "Thomas, is everything okay?" There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling on his end. Emily, I wanted to call you before you saw this in the mail. We've received an official notice. Your parents and Jessica have filed a petition with the probate court demanding a division of Mark's estate. I closed my eyes, pressing my hand to my forehead, but you said they don't have any grounds. They don't, Thomas replied calmly. This is a scare tactic. It won't hold up, but it means we will have to go to court to dismiss it. I felt tears slip down my cheeks, anger mixing with exhaustion. Why are they doing this, Thomas? Why can't they just leave us alone? His voice softened. Because they see dollar signs, Emily. But you are not alone in this. Mark protected you and Ava. Now we will protect what he left for you. I wiped my face, taking a deep breath. What do we do now? We fight, Emily, he said firmly. We fight and we don't let them win. I ended the call, looking around the quiet room, the shadows stretching across the walls. The war I never wanted was here. Have you ever had to fight your own family to protect your child's future? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. This wasn't just a will reading. It was justice. I walked into Thomas's office holding Ava's hand, her small fingers warm in mine. The conference room smelled like old wood and coffee, the blinds letting in a thin strip of Denver sunlight. Richard, Linda, and Jessica were already seated, their eyes sharp, their faces tight. Jessica's mascara was smudged, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Thomas stood nodding to me before taking his seat at the head of the table. Thank you all for coming, he said, opening a thick file with Mark's name typed across the top. The air felt heavy pressing against my chest as I held Ava's hand tighter. Thomas cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Mark Carter's will is clear and legally binding. He established a trust fund for Ava Carter to be managed solely by Emily Carter until Ava reaches the age of 25. No one else has any legal claim to these funds. Jessica's head snapped up, her mouth opening, but no sound came out. Thomas continued, his voice calm and even. Additionally, Mark left a small cash gift of $5,000 to Jessica Carter. Jessica's eyes widened, hope flickering in them for a brief second. However, Thomas added, his eyes moving to meet hers, this gift is conditional. It will only be released if Jessica Carter withdraws any and all claims against Emily Carter regarding Mark's estate. The room fell silent, the ticking clock on the wall suddenly loud. Jessica's face crumbled, tears spilling down her cheeks as she looked at me. Emily, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Just drop this. I need that money. I need it, please. I felt Ava's hand grip mine tighter, her small body pressing into my side. I shook my head slowly. No, Jessica. I will not pay for peace with Ava's future. Jessica let out a choked sob, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Richard's jaw was tight, his hands gripping the edge of the table, while Linda's eyes filled with tears, her fingers twisting the tissue in her lap. Thomas closed the folder, looking around the table. This is Mark's final word on the matter. There will be no further discussion. Jessica's sobs echoed in the quiet room, each one sharp against the walls. I stood there, feeling the weight of every moment that brought us here. The begging, the threats. The guilt they tried to pour over me like concrete. I looked at Jessica, her mascara streaking down her face, her shoulders shaking. Please, Emily, she whispered again, her voice hoarse. I need this. I'm drowning. I took a slow breath, my heart steady, Ava's small hand still in mine. I know you think you're drowning, Jessica. But you chose to sink. Mark tried to help you before, and you threw it away. Her eyes widened, but she didn't deny it. Richard's voice cut through the tension, low and cold. This is not over, Emily. I turned to him, feeling something inside me harden. Yes, Dad, it is. You made this choice. You turned Mark's death into a payday. You tried to rip apart what little piece Ava and I had left. Linda's tears spilled over and she reached across the table, her hand trembling as it touched mine. We're still family. Emily, she whispered, her voice cracking. We're still family, aren't we? I pulled my hand back, gently shaking my head. Family doesn't do this, Mom. Linda's hand fell back into her lap, her face crumpling as she began to cry harder. Thomas stood, clearing his throat. I think we're done here. I nodded, gripping Ava's hand, turning to leave the room. As I reached the door, Linda's voice broke behind me. We're still family, Emily. We have to be. I paused, the words hanging heavy in the air, my hand on the door handle. Have you ever had to walk away from your family to protect your child's future? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. I turned back to look at Linda, her tears catching the light as they slid down her cheeks. She looked smaller than I remembered, her shoulders hunched, her hands wringing the damp tissue in her lap. Her eyes were pleading, the kind of look that used to break me when I was a child, when all I wanted was for her to pull me close and tell me everything would be okay. Ava pressed closer to my side, her eyes watching me carefully, her small hand tightening around mine. Mom, can we go now? She whispered, her voice barely louder than the ticking clock on the wall. I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. In the silence, Jessica let out another sob, wiping her face with her sleeve, her breathing ragged. I didn't want this, Emily, she cried, her voice sharp with panic. I just wanted help. I just wanted someone to see me. I took a slow breath, steadying my voice as I looked at her. And Mark tried to see you, Jess. He tried to help you even when we didn't have much to give, but you took that help and you wasted it. And now you think you're owed more because you're hurting. She shook her head, her hair falling across her face. You don't understand, Emily. You have everything now. You have a house. You have money. You have Ava. I have nothing. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I didn't let it break me. I would give up every dollar to have Mark back, Jessica. Every single one. But that's not how life works, and the money he left behind isn't for me. It's for Ava. It's for her future, so she never has to feel like she's drowning, so she never has to beg anyone to help her stand. Jessica's lip trembled and she looked away, pressing her hands to her face as she cried. Richard stood, pushing his chair back so hard it scraped against the floor. This is ridiculous, he snapped, glaring at Thomas. You're twisting this, making it look like we're monsters when all we want is what's fair. Thomas remained calm, folding his hands on the table. What's fair is following Mark's wishes, Mr. Carter. And that is exactly what we are doing. Richard's eyes cut back to me, cold and hard. You think you're better than us now, don't you, Emily? You think you're untouchable because you have a lawyer and Mark's money. I straightened my shoulders, holding his gaze. No, Dad. I think I'm finally free from being manipulated by people who only see me when they want something. Linda let out a soft cry, reaching for Richard's arm. Please stop, she whispered. Please just stop. He pulled his arm away, running a hand through his thinning hair, his face red with anger. I gave you everything, Emily, he said, his voice breaking for a moment before turning sharp again. And this is how you repay us. I swallowed, my voice quiet but clear. You gave me life and I'm grateful for that. But you don't get to use it as a chain around my neck for the rest of mine. The room fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of the heating system as it pushed warm air into the heavy space. Jessica wiped her face, looking at me with red, swollen eyes. What do you want from me, Emily? She asked, her voice tired. You want me to say I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I asked for help. I'm sorry I tried to get what I thought I deserved. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle before I answered. I want you to understand that what you thought you deserved came at the cost of my daughter's security. I want you to understand that you tried to take from Ava what Mark worked his whole life to give her. I want you to understand that's not something I will ever let happen. Jessica's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from her face as she wiped another tear. Linda's hand trembled as she reached across the table, her fingers brushing against mine before I pulled away. We're still family, Emily, she whispered again, her voice breaking. We're still family, aren't we? I looked at her, the woman who once tucked me into bed, the woman who once kissed my scraped knees, who now sat across from me, begging for something she could not name. Family doesn't threaten to take away a child's future, I said softly. Linda's shoulders shook as she began to sob quietly, her head dropping into her hands. Richard stood there silent now, his eyes dark as he stared at me, but he said nothing. I turned to Thomas, nodding once. We're done here. Ava's small voice broke the silence, clear and brave. Can we go home now, Mom? I squeezed her hand, looking down at her, seeing Mark's eyes in hers. Yes, baby, I said, my voice steady. We're going home. As I led Ava toward the door, Linda's voice rose behind us, raw and desperate. "We're still family, Emily. We have to be." I paused at the door, my hand on the handle, the weight of her words heavy on my shoulders. Have you ever had to stand your ground even when it meant standing alone? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. I lost Mark, but I didn't lose the strength he left behind. It was a Saturday morning in Denver, the sky clear, the air crisp, as I opened the windows to let the cold breeze in. Ava was in the living room, humming quietly as she colored, the soft sound of her pencils moving across the page filling the silence. I stood in our bedroom looking at the boxes stacked against the wall, boxes I had avoided for weeks. Mark's clothes, his books, his hiking boots still with a trace of Colorado mud on the soles. I pulled out his favorite flannel shirt, pressing it to my chest, letting the familiar scent of cedar and coffee fill the air around me. My eyes stung, but I blinked back the tears, taking a steady breath. It was time. One by one, I took his shirts and folded them carefully, placing them in a box I would keep, a box for Ava to have when she was older, when she would want to remember the father who loved her more than anything. I pulled down the picture frame from the top shelf, the photo of Mark and Ava from the pumpkin patch last fall, both of them smiling, Ava on his shoulders, her hands in the air as she laughed. I hung it on the living room wall above the couch in the center of the room where it belonged. Ava looked up, her eyes soft, a small smile on her lips. "Mom, Daddy would like that," she said. I nodded, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "I think so too, honey." The doorbell rang and my chest tightened for a moment before I opened the door. It was a delivery, a small envelope from Thomas. Inside was a final letter confirming the trust was secure, that Jessica had forfeited her conditional gift after refusing to drop her claims, leaving her with nothing more to take from us. I sat down at the kitchen table, the letter in my hands, the light from the window warming my shoulders. Jessica had called a few days earlier, her voice small, asking me to reconsider, to help her just one more time. I told her no. I told her I would not pay for her mistakes with my daughter's future. "If you were me, would you have done the same?" Ava climbed onto the couch, hugging her knees as she looked at the photo on the wall. "Mom, do you think Daddy can see us right now?" I sat beside her, pulling her close, letting her head rest on my shoulder. "I think he can, baby. And I think he's really proud of you." She looked up at me, her brown eyes so much like Mark's, filled with a softness that made my chest ache. "Is he proud of you too?" I blinked, swallowing the tightness in my throat before I answered. "I hope so, Ava. I'm trying to do what's right, even when it's hard." She nodded, her small hand finding mine. "I'm glad you're my mom." The words broke something in me, but it wasn't pain this time. It was a quiet warmth, a reminder that Mark's love hadn't disappeared when he did. It lived here in Ava's smile, in the way she still believed in kindness, in the way she trusted me to keep her safe. The phone buzzed on the counter, and I glanced at it, seeing Linda's name on the screen before I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear another plea, another apology that wasn't really an apology. Linda had left a message the day before, her voice trembling. "Emily, please. We need to see Ava. We're still family." I sat in the kitchen that night, staring at the voicemail, replaying it once before deleting it. Not yet. Not until you understand what family really means. I turned off the phone and walked back to the living room where Ava had fallen asleep on the couch, the soft rise and fall of her breathing filling the room with calm. I covered her with Mark's flannel, tucking it around her small body, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I stood there for a moment, looking around our home, the boxes half packed, the photo of Mark and Ava now the centerpiece of our living room. This was our new beginning. And I would protect it no matter what. They thought taking Mark's money would break me, but they never understood what truly mattered. I woke up before the sun that morning, the Denver sky just beginning to blush pink at the edges. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to ache, but now felt like a gentle promise that we were safe, just the two of us. I padded to the kitchen, the cold floor grounding me as I brewed a pot of coffee, letting the familiar scent fill the air. Mark always joked that coffee was the only thing that could drag me out of bed before 7. I poured a cup, holding it close to my chest, feeling the warmth sink into my hands as I stood by the window. The mountains were dark silhouettes against the soft glow of dawn, the world holding its breath before another day began. Behind me, I heard the soft shuffle of Ava's feet as she came into the kitchen, her hair still tangled from sleep, her favorite purple blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Morning, Mom," she said, climbing onto her chair at the table. "Morning, baby," I replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head before setting her breakfast down. She poked at her cereal for a moment before looking up at me, her brown eyes serious. "Mom, will you ever forgive Grandma?" The spoon slipped from my hand, clattering against the bowl, milk splashing onto the table. I stared at her, the question hanging in the air, sharp and sudden. Ava watched me, waiting, her small hands folded in her lap. I pulled in a breath, steadying the shake in my voice. "That's a big question, honey," I said, sitting across from her. "And I promise when you're ready I will tell you everything you need to know. But for now, just know that I love you and I will always protect you." She nodded, her shoulders relaxing as she picked up her spoon again, the moment passing but leaving its mark on both of us. After I cleaned up the breakfast dishes, there was a knock at the door. I wiped my hands on a towel, peeking through the window to see Rachel standing there, a warm smile on her face, her briefcase in hand. Rachel had been my friend since college, one of the few people who had seen every version of me and stayed. She stepped inside, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and fresh air. I made us both coffee and we sat at the kitchen table, the morning light pooling between us. "I've been thinking," Rachel said, tapping her nails against her coffee mug. "Mark's trust is strong, and Ava is secure. But I know Mark would want more than just financial safety for her. He'd want his legacy to live on." I tilted my head, studying her. "What do you mean?" She smiled softly. "What if we set up a small community scholarship in Mark's name? Use a portion of the interest from the trust to help kids who love math, kids who remind you of Ava, kids who remind you of him." My breath caught the idea, so beautiful it hurt. Mark would have loved that, I whispered, blinking back the sting in my eyes. "But is it safe for Ava?" Rachel reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Mark prepared this so you and Ava would live, Emily. Not hide. This is your choice, but it would honor him and it would show Ava what legacy really means." I looked over at Ava, who was sitting on the floor with her colored pencils, drawing a picture of a mountain with a bright sun above it. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "Let's do it." Rachel smiled, nodding, and for the first time in a long time I felt like I was moving forward, not just surviving. Have you ever taken a step to turn pain into something good? Share in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. That afternoon, while Ava napped, I sat in the living room, letting the soft Denver breeze drift through the open window. I pulled out a small wooden box from the shelf, running my hand over the carved lid before opening it. Inside were photos of Mark and Ava, ticket stubs from baseball games, and a small birthday card Mark had given me last year. I picked up the card, reading his handwriting again, the words both comforting and sharp. "Promise me you'll protect her from anyone, even family, if you have to." I remembered the day he said it, on his last birthday. We had a small cake in the kitchen, Ava's hands covered in frosting as she insisted on helping him blow out the candles. Mark had pulled me aside, laughter still in his eyes, but his face turning serious. "Promise me, Em," he had said, glancing at Ava as she danced around the kitchen. "Promise me you'll protect her no matter what." At the time I had laughed, kissing him, telling him he was being dramatic. But now those words anchored me in every decision I made. The chime of my laptop pulled me back, and I saw a new email notification. From Linda Carter, subject: "Please Emily. Please let us see Ava. We're still family, we miss her, I miss you. Love, Mom." I stared at the screen, my heart heavy, the memories of childhood birthdays, Sunday pancakes, and bedtime stories, tangled with the reality of courtrooms and threats. I opened a new email, letting my fingers hover over the keyboard before I began to type. "Mom. When your actions match your words and you respect Ava's safety and boundaries, we can talk. Family doesn't mean endless access, it means showing up with love and respect, not demands. We are not ready. Ava is not ready." Emily, I read it twice before hitting send, leaning back in my chair, letting out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. Later that day, Ava and I packed a small bag and drove to the hiking trail Mark had loved. The trees were starting to turn gold, leaves crunching under our boots as we walked along the trail. Ava reached up, taking my hand as we walked, her small fingers warm and steady. Mom, are we really okay now? I stopped kneeling in front of her so we were eye to eye, the autumn air crisp around us. We're more than okay, Ava. We're free, and Daddy would be so proud of you. She smiled, the kind of smile that lights up her entire face, and she wrapped her arms around my neck, hugging me tight. I closed my eyes, holding her, letting the peace of the moment wash over us. When we got home, Ava helped me hang a small plaque by the front door, the words etched in simple letters. This home is built on love, not fear. She looked up at me, her eyes bright. Is this for Daddy? I nodded, brushing a tear from my cheek. Yes, baby. For Daddy. For us. She leaned forward, pressing a small kiss to my hand before running off to the living room, laughter spilling behind her. I stood there for a moment, letting the warmth of her love fill the quiet spaces that used to hurt. We were building something new. Something strong. Something no one could take from us.